Was Udina indoctrinated or just a tool for Cerberus? Today, we'll be examining the evidence and rendering judgment against one of the biggest jagoffs in the Mass Effect trilogy.
We've locked out all the Normandy's primary systems until further notice you're grounded.
Nobody stabs me in the back, Udina. Nobody.
What's up, everyone? Big Dan here. Before we begin, I have a bunch of different Mass Effect trilogy guides and lore videos on my channel, so if you're interested in seeing more, hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Near the midway point of Mass Effect 3, human Councilor Donnell Udina stages an attempted coup on the Citadel. He forged an alliance with Cerberus, sought to eliminate the Council, and seize power for himself. The coup was thwarted by Commander Shepard, and Udina was killed at the end of the mission. But was Udina indoctrinated, like Cerberus' head honcho the Illusive Man, or was he just a tool caught up in larger events outside his control? Before we render judgment on the man, let's take a look at the evidence and see if there's anything to suggest he was indoctrinated. For starters, the coup attempt comes as a shock to many of the people who knew him. Captain Anderson is completely blindsided by the news of the coup.
Udina? That SOB was always power-hungry. But this?
He wasn't in charge. Cerberus was just using him to take control of the Citadel.
What the hell for?
Likewise, the second human Spectre, Ashley Williams, is puzzled by Udina's actions and ponders whether or not he was indoctrinated.
I can't believe he was responsible for all of it. Was he indoctrinated?
It's hard to say.
How do we fight something that can worm its way into your head?
I also have a memory of EDI suggesting that Udina might have been indoctrinated, but I couldn't find my footage of this, so maybe that's just my imagination. Who knows at this point? In any case, the evidence of indoctrination is rather flimsy at this point, mostly just hearsay and offhanded comments by other characters. To further assess whether or not Udina was indoctrinated, it's helpful to understand how indoctrination occurs in the first place. In order to become indoctrinated by the Reapers, a person typically needs to come in close contact with a Reaper or a Reaper artifact. We see many examples of this throughout the trilogy. For instance, Saren, Benezia, Ranithanoptis, Shiala, and many others were indoctrinated by Sovereign in Mass Effect 1. Also, Cerberus crew members aboard the derelict Reaper were indoctrinated in Mass Effect 2, as was Dr. Amanda Kenson and her team during the Arrival DLC. So is it possible that Udina came into contact with a Reaper or Reaper artifact? It seems unlikely. The first thing that comes to mind are the pieces of Sovereign which rained down on the Citadel at the end of Mass Effect 1. But that was nearly 3 years ago at this point in time, and the remains of Sovereign were long since cleaned up. And we have no evidence that Udina ever came into close contact with any of the pieces. So again, this is flimsy evidence at best. There is still a piece of Sovereign in Dr. Bryson's lab on the Citadel. However, it is locked down in a containment field, and it hasn't affected Bryson himself, who has been working alongside it on a daily basis. No other people on the Citadel appear to be affected either, other than Dr. Bryson's assistant. However, it's worth pointing out that he was indoctrinated by Leviathan, not the Reapers, and they only wanted to keep Bryson from discovering them. So there is no evidence to suggest that Leviathan could have affected anyone else on the Citadel, least of all Udina. Another fan theory I've seen floating around on the internet is that Udina was a deep cover operative for Cerberus all along, dating back to the events of Mass Effect 1. While it's fun to imagine Udina acting as a double agent for Cerberus, there is literally no evidence in the trilogy to support this, not even the Shadow Broker videos or dossiers. And if anyone would have known that Udina was part of Cerberus, it would have been the Shadow Broker. So I think we can rule that out. Still, it's a fun theory to think about. At this point, we have little evidence of indoctrination, so let's look at what we can ascertain about Udina's motivations. The primary source for this are conversations we have with Udina throughout the trilogy, most notably at the beginning of Mass Effect 3. Since Mass Effect 1, Udina has always sought to expand humanity's power and influence. He always considers human interests first and foremost. Given the right circumstances, He will even push for an all-human council at the end of Mass Effect if the previous council died during the Geth attack and Shepard has a renegade morality.
The others will follow us, Shepard. They know we're their only hope. We will have a human council with a human chairman.
The Reaper invasion on Earth galvanized Udina, and the Council's lack of support for Earth at the beginning of the game was a real turning point for him. Just listen to the raw frustration from Udina after the meeting.
They're a bunch of self-concerned jackasses, Shepard. We may have a spot in the council, but humanity will always be considered second-rate.
Udina goes on to talk about gathering support for Earth by any and all means necessary.
The council. You saved their lives. And for what? Apologies that boil down to maybe later. If we don't figure out something, maybe later will be an epitaph on a mass grave of 11 billion.
I know what I'm gonna do. What are you gonna do?
Humanity has created some goodwill in the galaxy. Now we cash in our chips. I will get what funding I can, what materials I can, and spread the message. Help the humans, help yourselves. I'll institute a draft in our colonies and order all civilian ships armed. Work on the Prothean device will be around the clock.
Finally, he shares with us his pain at the loss of his friends on Arcturus Station, where a Reaper attack wiped out the Alliance Parliament and tens of thousands of humans living there.
Did you know a lot of people on Earth?
Many. It's monstrous to think of them being snuffed out, of course, but the part that gets me is Arcturus. I must have known most of the Alliance Parliament on a first-name basis. I required a second VI just to track all their birthdays and anniversaries. Rose Garden stuff, but to have it all gone.
I should go.
Based on the evidence, I do not believe Udina was indoctrinated. He was merely a tool used by Cerberus. When the Council refused to lend their support to Earth, Udina got desperate. Reading the casualty reports and waiting for help made him impatient and scared. He likely didn't feel like Shepard was moving fast enough to gather fleets to retake Earth. Maybe he didn't even believe the commander could successfully build alliances with other races. So he looked elsewhere for support, and Cerberus seemed like a good fit in his mind. Maybe he reached out to them, or maybe the Illusive Man contacted him first. Either way, he sprang into action, planning to seize power and throw in everything he had available to go and retake Earth. It was a very flawed plan, born out of desperation by a man in way over his head. Udina was always a bit of a conniving and opportunistic jackass, but he truly did want to stop the Reapers and save humanity. He just didn't know the best way to go about it. War changes people, and it definitely changed Udina. But at the end of the day, Udina wasn't indoctrinated, he was just a tool. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more Mass Effect and RPG videos. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.